Hello there. It's been some time since I've made a video. I have actually shaved, and then my hair, my face grows back. My daughter enjoys rubbing my face, so I leave the spikiness there for her. Um, I would like to address a few things on this one. Most immediately, the everybody will be noticing this. It's almost, silly to talk about, but it's a very real experience for all of us that this whole situation it's overbearing. You know, the the considerations that are made in all things have become ridiculous, and actually I would consider them to be antisocial. If we were to examine this in a court of law, what what is actually happening, I'm sure that sorry, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent, beg your pardon. Listen, I've had little bit of red wine because I've become very overwhelmed. The more information I've had, a lot of time off, the more information I've gotten, which I've been trying to keep track of, which is ridiculous, the more distressed I've become. I'm trying to relax. I just had a bit of red wine, so it might be a little bit garbled, but I just want to say, look, I've really noticed it. One of the things that's really tragic is that, I've got a really wonderful neighbourhood, and, I'm as much a part of it as anybody else with respect to my neighbours. But it's actually literally become difficult to present. I mean, I've had a cold, as I may have mentioned on the previous. I think I did. I got to get well soon, and thanks for that. A bit of a sing out for Theodore. Thank you for your support and your encouragement. But yeah, I basically wanted to say, it's the hardest thing for me, and particularly since I've picked up my children who only have 40% time with them, unfortunately, but it's another thing. It's very difficult to navigate the social landscape now, most particularly with children. And I think that's one of the real tragedies, is that parents are not clear-minded. How can they be? They're trying to get on with their everyday existence, which is, when you're a parent and you've got children in you're taking care of them, it's no small task. So it's not surprising that people haven't, even the people who perhaps potentially object very strongly to all of the social carry-on, as I would describe it, they don't have like myself, you don't have the capacity to engage at the level which we really need to. And that sort of becomes the issue, is that then you step outside and it's very difficult to anticipate or consider how, or even just, behaviours become very difficult. It's a real tricky, difficult world, most particularly with children. If you take children out into the situation that we're in now, and you're trying to describe to them, okay, when we go to the stupid market or the supermarket, we don't, we're just not touching anything, which is what ordinarily parents ought to do anyway. Is your children, if they can't control their hands, they go behind their backs until they can control them. Which I believe that's a really good opportunity, a context for a child to learn self-control. But in the situation we're in now, it's incredibly important that people, perceive that the children, if they're accompanying you as a parent, i.e., there's more people, my God, in the, IGA, Independent Growers Association, stupid market, or whatever one you go to, people are nervous. It's really sad, and it's really, it's having a big impact on me, and it's having a big impact on everybody in different ways. And what I'm more concerned about is, today I took the children out for a bike ride, and it's very enjoyable. It's autumn. The seasonal change. The weather's perfect. So and actually the brilliant because the traffic's particularly well, it's just a car. It's no one there. No one's driving their cars. So we have great traffic. But then we ride out. We get to where we want to go. It's like a little BMX track that's been set up for children to ride their bikes on. Closed, or it has signs up. Closed, under the authority of the city of blah, blah, blah. And it's like, hang on a minute. What the heck? We're surrounded by open space. There's no one else there. And it's trying to prevent you from children riding their bikes around. And then another family, two more families present themselves and their children want to ride as well. And they observe the signs, and it's like, well, and Susan and, I won't describe, my names are not important, but the children are riding around having a great time, and I'm just like, well, I think this is it's an unfortunate, it's an unintended consequence that you're going to force people into civil disobedience. And I'm probably the most, inclined towards civil disobedience of all people I know, because I just try not to, I try not to, I really do respect and regard the authorities that we have installed, and this is my difficulty, is I'm as much a part of this as everybody else, but we have very real problems we've created because of our, practically being asleep at the wheel, so to speak, which, if you're asleep at the wheel in a motor vehicle, it's deadly. It's the same in this situation. We've been asleep at the wheel socially. We've just been saying, well, we pay our taxes, we do this, we do that, we believe these people are being trained through their, academic, course, and, we're confident that at the end of it, the people who are selected to take the positions of within the structure, the systems that we have, given the big tick to, whether it be passively or, actively, these things will, manage. It's not good enough anymore. It's really not. This is the best time ever, as far as I'm concerned, and it's the worst time ever. It's the best time because, if we bother to just scratch, literally, you just have to scratch beneath the bloody surface to see this thing is absolutely, there's no doubtski aboutski. It's an epidemic of testing, nothing else. I received a text message with a link to a Facebook, which I don't use. It may have become obvious to anybody who's watching this, but I don't know there's very many at all. But, I'm doing this. Beg your pardon, the red wine. I hope that you can understand that if I was able to be better, I'd be, probably writing the same sort of letter that I've received notification of, or, like a reference to. Facebook, it was an emeritus of a professor of a microbiology, it's a big university in Germany, and he wrote an open letter to Angela Merkel, the Chancellor. And he said, listen, I've got 5 questions which are really quite important questions, and I wondered if you can answer them. And if you can't answer them, why haven't they been asked, and why aren't they being answered? Because they really point very directly to the fact that this is a failure, absolute failure of governance, an absolute failure of due diligence of intelligent people. You cannot afford to simply pay your taxes, no matter what level of pay you're on. You cannot simply farm out responsibility and then, hope for the best in terms of, the people who do their best and fulfill their responsibility and their role as best they can, with their trained heavy leaning towards, safety for the public, for the people they're actually responsible for. You cannot rely on that. It's a completely inefficient, ineffective way of living your life. I suppose that's what I want to say in a nutshell, but it's very difficult when you have children, especially, and even if you don't have children, it's no different, I expect. You can't be able to anticipate how your neighbour is, experiencing this whole crisis. People that I would describe them, and this is again, it's one of those things you nearly need to tighten up, but I won't tighten it up. People I would describe as friendly acquaintances over time. It's quite observable, the sort of shift in their orientation, or their ability to relate to you. And it's very, even with neighbours, we're not intimate enough, we don't know enough about each other that we can confidently say, I'm getting to the point where I probably would have, if I'd made proper notes, I had some notes, I would have pointed out, it's tragic the effect it has on your relationships with everybody, because it's very difficult to trust any longer that people can be relied upon to, in my case, it's probably the antithesis of most cases where people would like to be regarded as well. But I had a simple cold, and I'm on the tail end of it now. But like I was actually like practically paranoid about using my voice, because the cracked voice with a cold and all the rest of it, which may be evident now. I was concerned that it would cause distress to my neighbours, and not only that, it caused distress to me because inadvertently contact occurred between some of my neighbours and myself, and out of a natural relational encounter, I spoke, and then they registered my cracked voice, and tragically they were very, very concerned, and then I went inside afterwards, and I'm thinking, well, does that mean I'm going to be reported to the authorities for being out and about? Was like literally on the verge of our property, which is common ground, so to speak. I think it's considered within the road reserve, and it has that psychological, tension, that psychological stress upon everybody, that it's for them, for my neighbours who are brilliant, lovely people. They would be wondering what to do, no doubt, because I could see in one of the couple was fairly at ease, and the other one was immediately they heard my voice crack, they were very edgy. So that led me to believe that I'm actually causing concern, and then I went away concerned that I had caused concern. These stresses, they may seem, to some degree manageable, but they're not. Already we need to just wake up, pay attention, and accept that we've let things go the way that they have for too long. We need to start to consider how this brilliant opportunity, because there's, I don't know, there was a time when I would hear that crisis is really an opportunity. This opportunity / crisis is waiting to be taken advantage of by us. We can do that only if we, if we encourage one another and speak the truth. And that's essentially what I'm hoping that I'm able to do, and then I'm hoping that I'm able to encourage you to do also. It's just to speak, like when it's brilliant. When you've got children, it's easy because, when the children came to me, I just said, okay, well, when everyone speaks of the COVID-19 or there's any adjustment in what's required of them behaviourally, relationally, let's just consider that to be and I just, I said it offhand, I said, it's the irrational panic. It's the national irrational panic. So the national irrational panic for them gives them and it's in the context of, specifically the relationship I have with the children, who I'm speaking of. that is, that's enough for them to find a place to anchor themselves and say, okay, well, we can process, the shift in people's behaviour and the way we're supposed to behave and all the rest of it on the basis that other people are other people are really genuinely concerned, and we need to respect other people's positions and we need to respect other people's well-being. However, we also need to make a provision for them and acceptance, a respect for them and ourselves in saying, no, it is absolutely, it's more a national irrational panic than it is some sort of new disease. It's bloody well not a disease at all. So I'm getting back to that German emeritus professor of this University of Mainz or whatever. Apparently his open letter to the Chancellor Angela Merkel went viral, which is brilliant as far as I'm concerned. The more things that go viral in terms of, really asking responsible questions. He asked 5 questions. All of them were responsible. And, you can, I don't know how you would seek that out. I suppose, I got my friend tried to get me started on Facebook. It's a nightmare. And I tried, I couldn't even get the thing to run. But then what happened was I saw basically the information I needed to see. And I went, oh, how do I share this? Well, if you have the ability to share things on social media, have the courage to share them because they're actually the most important information that people can receive. If you have doubts in your mind, don't be afraid to express them. And if you have confidence, I really hope that we can take advantage of your confidence, because a lot of people don't. They're not confident under the circumstances. I've got no following of my notes whatsoever. And Gary Bob's going to sit on the bench now because I find him a little bit heavy, even though he's not very heavy at all. So going back to my point number 1, I'm going to go. Okay, so they were charting the COVID-19 spread in Australia. This is a few days ago. And this is a journal article, I believe. Or actually, no, it's not. It's a media segment. And it was by a number of people. I won't mention their names because I don't know all the legalities of YouTube and blah, blah, blah. But it was this digital story innovation team of the ABC network. And it was updated on it was updated on the 31st of March. It was published initially on the 17th of March 2020. And it was talking about deaths by age and gender. Well, so the deaths by age and gender at that point, the 31st, presumably being updated, 60 to 69, there was one man had died. The death was attributed, and I'm going to say it now before we get on. People are being described as having died from COVID-19 when they've died from, 2, 3, 4 or more comorbidity factors. These people have struggled to some degree with their health for some time, and ultimately when they've died as a result of a combination of factors, they've gone on to, as they did in London, and there's actually a document which I'll try and put a link to, which shows that they're attributing the cause of death to COVID-19, when in actual fact it's got nothing to do with COVID-19, which is a nonsense. It's got everything to do with the fact that they're overwhelmed physically, and it's time for them to die, and we all die. So anyway, that's the first. I'm not going to say it again, but so the first 60 to 69 age group, 1 male. 70 to 79, 5 males and 3 females. 80 to 89, 3 males and 3 females. They're catching up, the women. Oh, they've overtaken us. Over 90, 3 females. Well, that's because most males are dead by then anyway, not of COVID-19, simply because our bodies only last us a certain, amount of time, as we describe it. We can't expect to live forever, and we shouldn't try and expect our parents or our aunties or our uncles or our grandpas or grandmas or whatever. We can't expect them to live longer than they're supposed to live. Let them go. You know, it's not easy. I know. I love my parent. A lot of people are suffering. Like, I'm actually one of these, and my children and my grandchildren are suffering because we can't go and see my 98-year-old grandma. She's locked down, and we're locked down, and all the rest of it. People are suffering because they can't have the contact in these last, few years, months, weeks, or days of their lives with the people they love. They're going to die in isolation because of all this lockdown. And we say, oh, well, it's for the good of the community, we don't want people. And people, I've actually heard a person on the radio the other day say, oh, I would pay $200,000 to give my dad another 12 months. I'm like, well, what the heck does that mean? What if it's time for your dad to die? It's a matter of you, adjusting to the reality that we all die, and your dad dying according to the timing of his death. And it's, whether the cause be any number of real, everyone dies. So that's that. So, and there was one, and it was no category given. So that was the sum total of the deaths in Australia, I think. And then I've gone on to point number 2. I'll just roll through these quickly. So it says we could, and I wrote these notes several days ago, so I can't remember exactly what I meant. It says we could be looking at up to 12 to 18 months of this. And it says in quotation marks, countries might be enacting some degree of control measures right through until a vaccine comes along. And that's right. That's according to a new modelling study from Imperial College London. Now, with modelling studies are mathematical, they're abstractions on reality. They're completely useless. They're a field of, speculation that is completely useless. Except that when people who, we've farmed out the right or, the responsibility or the opportunity to consider information that we ought to be considering ourselves, when they consider it, they go, it could be the case that this is really important. And then they make the decisions and everybody follows. It just gets out of control. Anyway, banged on about that. And that was, that's right, that was from this particular co-host on a really very well received, very popular podcast on the ABC. And, the co-host and the doctor who was on there said that, and it's just really sad that they have been deluded to the degree that they have. Well, I don't think it's delusion. I think it's just trained in real terms, trained as a journalist, trained as a doctor, trained as both, and to not critically evaluate reality for themselves, and most importantly, for the effect that it's going to have on everybody around them as well. Look, I'm going to bang on quickly. Time's nearly up, but Paracelsus, or that's the name of the Greek person, like he was one of the founders of allopathic modern medicine, or he was a reference point to the sort of progression toward this dreadful state of affairs. You would have heard this. It says the poison is in the dose. Well, that's a simplification of these words. It says all things are poison and nothing is without poison. It is only the dose that makes a thing a poison. Apparently that's a literal quote that he was making, or the words that he put forward, or the proposition he put forward, because it's absolutely a foul proposition. Not all things are poison, for God's sake. We need so many important, things in our lives, at the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual level. They're not poisonous. They're essential to us. They're not poison. But this is a way of, dulling people, or, like smoothing or, validating the fact that the way that these people want to treat, and going back to that initial quote that I made of Voltaire, these people would like to treat the human body as some sort of chemical machine that needs to be, dealt with mechanically, chemically, the way that they do, and it's wrong. So, I'm going on to point number 3. I can't remember what I was going to say about that initially, but it doesn't matter. Point number 3, or maybe I've gone over this before. I'm having it, anyway. I think I've been over this before, I beg your pardon. I'll finish off because I'll just go straight to point number 4. I'm not sure of point number 3. It seems somehow familiar to me. So life as we know it is far. This is wrong. But I don't think I gave you this quote, and I really want to give you this quote because it's important to understand. The quote is, "The book explains the purpose of life. That purpose is not merely to find happiness, either here or hereafter. Neither is it to save, in quotation marks, one's soul. The real purpose of life, the purpose that will satisfy both sense and reason, is this: that each one of us will be progressively conscious in ever higher degrees of being conscious. That is, conscious of nature and in and through and beyond nature. By nature is meant all that one can be made conscious of through the senses." And that, I believe, is a very useful quote, or very useful description of the meaning of life. And I think we really need to pay attention to it, because if we keep letting things slide, we've lost track. And the reality is, it's not acceptable for us to treat our children the way we are at the moment. It's not acceptable for us to try and describe things that we haven't made the mental effort, physical effort to understand ourselves. It's not right to practically lie or give the false impression that we understand what's going on, when clearly we don't, because if we did, it wouldn't bloody well be going on. We're being taken advantage of, and if we're not being taken advantage of, then we're just being sloppy, and it's not good enough. So hopefully everyone can wake up. And that's it. Hopefully I said something worthwhile. I've got better things to present to you, and I will structure them more carefully, hopefully. But for now, that's all I'm going to say. Thanks for your time, and hopefully if you can, I don't expect miracles. No, if you want to pass it on. Hopefully eventually people will start to wake up, and the only way they're going to do that is if we help them. That is, whoever we are.